Gaines here, and I am your new host of The Statesman right here in Delaware. It is a little something different than where you've seen me previously. We're trying something a little different, a little new, another take on things, but some of the same topics, some of the same ideas, but we're excited for this fresh new look that we have, and it's going to be different. And let me tell you why we're going to be different than other shows. Now, it is true, I've had the privilege of talking, and I have the privilege today of speaking to someone who is very well known in Delaware, a political go-getter, and has done great things. And I have done several of those people in the past. But the difference with The Statesman is we want to know what's going on with you, not just with them. It's great that we know what the political agenda is, but I also want to know how that political agenda is affecting you, your family. And the best way to get that information, the best way to have that conversation is to have you sitting in a chair. So as we progress, you're going to see your friends and your neighbors talk a lot about politics, right? The conversation, the ideas, and we may even correct some misnomers out there of people and what they think of politics and world politics. State politics, how it affects your local governments, the schools, all those issues that we've talked about before. We're going to talk about them again, but it's going to be you, right? We're going to have you sitting there. And sometimes we will have politicians, but it'll be more of the man on the street, the person on the street, the woman on the street than it is anything else. So we're so happy to have you join us, and we're excited that you decided to tune in. So I'm not going to waste any time because I know your time is valuable, but we're excited for the first guest on The Statesman to be none other than the Honorable Mrs. Jane Brady.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you so much for being our first guest.
Thank you. It's a privilege.
Yes, it's a different format, a little something different, but I know that I can't talk about things that have been going on over the past 2 weeks one-sided. And you've gotten on me about that before, about being too one-sided. I think it's important, especially now that we have these two sides for these major things. What we have going on in our country right now, it's a lot. What we have going on in our state right now, it's a lot. And one thing I will say is that you've always, not just on the bench, but on previous interviews, you've been very level-headed. And I appreciate where you're coming from in regards to that. So I'm very interested to know. And everybody knows I don't agree with everything, but I do agree with some, and I think the people will too. But I also think that you represent a great deal of Americans, because this podcast would be seen all over, a great deal of Americans, because this country is split right now. And thankfully, they don't all see it how I see it, but a lot of Americans see it right now as you see it. So I think that by you being here is bringing them into the discussion, and I appreciate that. I really, really do. I really appreciate that. So how has your summer been going?
Hot.
Yes.
It's been hot. Well, first, I waited tables for 10 years at the beach to put myself through college and law school, and I know that Memorial Day weekend is always cold and wet, right? Well, it was cold and wet for a month. We had Memorial Day weekend for a month, and now we have a heat stroke.
Yes.
I mean, it's just crazy. But otherwise, summer's going great. My son is going to be a senior in high school next year.
Buddy.
And so, yeah, he's taking one college class this summer.
Okay.
So they're able to do that before they graduate, actually, which is kind of cool.
And maybe that'll translate over to the checkbook a little later, one of the less classes that he has to take.
Yeah, maybe. But it's all going well. How about yours?
No complaints as of yet. When I left the house, everybody was okay. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any rockets flying through the air. And segueing over, there's been some of that this weekend, right?
Yes.
There's been our country and Iran have really gone at it. And our president has taken his stand, and I can't say, from working in the intelligence field for several years, I agree with his stance, but I'm very interested to know your ideas.
I think more people have agreed with him than I expected. There have been some very vocal critics, obviously, and of course the media will give anyone on either extreme side of an argument the opportunity to be heard, and they amplify those voices beyond what I think the majority of people feel or think. But I do think that it was strategic, it was limited, it was all military targets. I think it was done in cooperation with Israel, who took out the ability for them to defend their skies so that our troops were at less risk when we did it. And I think that we still don't know. Everybody who's opining on how extensive the damage was, none of them know. We don't know yet. And we may never know. If Iran comes around a bit with regard to having inspectors and people on the ground that can be trusted, the only other option we have is to rely on Israeli intelligence. And it's pretty clear Israel has infiltrated the government in Iran. The success they've had in targeting military leaders, scientists, smaller locations that were working with nuclear potential, were related nuclear power, has been incredible. It's been really remarkable. And so I think that we either have a cooperation with Iran or we're going to have to rely upon Israeli intelligence to help us figure out what exactly the damage was that was done. It certainly was structured in a way that would permit the depth, to the rockets and bombs to reach the depth that they believed that the facility was located within the mountain. So it was a very strategic, planned, well-planned project, and we'll just see. I think the good news for anybody who was concerned about a war is that he has no intention of putting any boots on the ground. He has no intention of trying to, in any way, do what we did in Syria and change regimes. He's talked briefly about that. Regime change would be good in the sense that the Iranian people would be freer if we had the right regime change, but we don't know what would happen. We can't be sure of what would happen, and look what happened in Syria. And so I think that his response was measured and necessary to protect America and our interests. And people say when someone tells you who they are, you better believe it.
Absolutely.
They've been chanting "Death to America" for a while. In '79, they captured people and held them hostage forever. They've supported Hamas and Hezbollah that have been largely decimated, but not completely. The Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas have not been really a big factor. You have Pakistan complimenting, although they did get upset with them about the bombing, but they complimented him. Qatar, or Qatar, however you want to say it, I've learned it both ways, has been critical of Iran for entering their airspace to attack the base, and that wouldn't have happened. I think the entire region is breathing a sigh of relief because Egypt, UAE, and other countries would have had to pursue a nuclear capability if Iran had gotten it, because no one trusts the Iranians.
But do you believe that there was a reason that the countries have not pursued this option in the past?
Yes.
Do you believe that there is a reason that's far greater than what we can see from an unclassified standpoint of why they did not do that?
The only thing I think is that Israel's role in essentially preparing Iran for our attack, in taking out the people who were responsible for the program, in doing the things that were ancillary to the destruction of the facilities to try and assure there was no nuclear weapon program in the future, taking out their ability to protect their airspace. If all of that had not happened, and it never had before, I don't know that we would have done what we did. So I think it was a unique opportunity.
I think it was a unique opportunity, yes, but like our methodologies, our planes, these are things that we've had for years. These bombs we've had for years. And intelligence, I'm sure that we've had for years. But at the same time, I have to believe that there was a reason besides the lack of violence why they were trying. Prior governments, prior administrations, both Republican and Democrat, were always trying to find a diplomatic solution to this. And it wasn't because, okay, well, yeah, granted, they have slowed down their nuclear program. We don't know the deficit as of yet. But at the same time, because of the groups, they know that that's only going to spark retaliation from groups all over the world.
I don't know that that'll be true. I mean,
we're going to find out.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And we also will find out whether there are sleeper cells in this country that are loyal to China, to Iran, to other countries that wish us harm. And we'll find that out over time and count on ICE and Border Patrol and others to try and ferret that out. But I do think that this president has been not focused on Iran as a country and the leader and taking it out. He has been focused, I believe, on creating an economic incentive for the entire region to prosper. This has been, I think, a new.
You think that is
a new trade route? A new trade route.
This had nothing to do
China.
with the pressure from Israel.
Oh,
to
it
get
has
this
everything to do in the immediacy to that. But his big picture in terms of Iran and Pakistan. I mean, not Iran. India and Pakistan. The Abraham Accords. The work that he's done. I believe it's all about commerce. It's all about economics and bringing prosperity, and you can't have prosperity without stability. He's trying to bring stability to that region, and I think the people who live there and the leadership in the other countries want it, and it has been disrupted. I think Iraq is very happy right now that Iran has been put, hopefully, back on its heels.
But we've been through this before, right? It's been, 15, 20 years ago where we were promised these weapons of mass destruction. We went boots on the ground because of it, and it was false information, and that was a Republican administration. Now, we understand that, Iran did have a nuclear capability, but was this, let's just say, I believe it was upsold in order to get a result, and I'm worried about it.
If it was, then, or if we didn't take it out, then we'll find that out. I don't think it's upsold that Iran has made it clear they want a nuclear capability for weapons, that they have refused to allow anyone.
But they're not the only, but the other part to that is I just have trouble because there's other countries in the region that do have a nuclear capability.
Pakistan.
Right. So if there's other countries in the region that we know of that do have a nuclear capability, and if Iran wanted to have that nuclear capability, despite all the talks, they had not executed that in the past. Like, why are we doing that to them?
Well, there's two reasons. One, I can understand people who go, well, why should we have it and we can't? We say other people can't, right? But we haven't said that we want a country to be obliterated. We haven't said we want death to another country. Iran has been, and we don't have a track record of having supported the terrorist organizations that have done the harm and damage to civilian populations that Iran has supported. So there's a record of accomplishment, if you want to call it that, but a record of action that deems them dangerous to our national security as well as wanting to obliterate Israel. I think that other countries had spoken to the president in the past about their concerns that they would pursue nuclear weapons if Iran was able to secure a nuclear weapon. And I think that President Trump saw that the instability and the escalation and the risk of that going into the hands of people who wished harm or were willing to exercise, as Iran has shown, terrorism to harm others was too great, and he couldn't take the chance.
So-
and was willing to take the step that others have not been willing to.
The country, I wouldn't say is split. I would say the country is fractured in regards to this. Do you believe right now, with the sinking approval ratings of the President Trump, do you believe that the party is united?
The America First community is a little divided right now because a lot of people in that community don't want to be involved in wars overseas. There was a war. It was between Israel and Iran. And I think that what President Trump decided to do may have helped to end that war because they now have a ceasefire. And that wasn't on the horizon.
They have a ceasefire today.
And it wasn't even on the horizon 3 days ago.
Israel, over the past few months, has proven that the ceasefires don't necessarily stay ceased, right?
As did Iran.
You're
So they
right.
both took a little shot.
Right.
And then President Trump said they really need to back off, and they did. But I do think that overwhelmingly the polls that I've seen show that not only Republicans, but Democrats and independents support keeping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. What is undecided yet is whether people believe what we did accomplished that. And if it did, then his approval rating will be very high on that issue.
Maybe. What I worry about is the cyber side of things, right? We have the cyber side of things. We don't know what that is going to entail. My fear is if there is a cyber attack in the United States, and I work in the cyber community every single day, the devastation, I believe, could be far greater than any nuclear attack
Absolutely.
that
I agree with you.
that could have been demonstrated. But I don't think that America completely grasped that.
Well, I have to tell you, when I was Attorney General, I was talking with the IT department for the state, the Office of Information Services or something like that. I forget what it was called at the
DTI,
time.
right.
Yeah, Delaware. Yeah, well, they changed its name several times. But anyway, the guys in charge of our computer systems, they told me that 70% of all the mail received each day was spam into the servers. Didn't even get to the recipients. And they were always worried about, some got through, and there were people who compromised our system by clicking on a phishing thing or a virus. But 70% of everything that came to the state servers before it got to the recipients was trash. That's pretty remarkable. I didn't realize it was, I guess it doesn't cost a lot of money to use the electronic information system to send messages. But I was shocked. I think that, but now if you're talking, and I met with a group, included the FBI, local businesses, banks, large companies, and my office when I was AG. And we were sitting in the 8th or 10th floor of the state office building. And a guy that was instructing the group asked one guy to open up his phone. And he did. And a guy down on the street sent up a screenshot of what was on that guy's phone. And that was 15 years ago. God knows what they can do now.
Yeah, and I worry about that with our power grid, which is not as secure as it needs to be, and I think that's been proven. With our cellular phone carriers and systems that we have here, if a combination of both of those things were to happen, I truly believe that this country would go into chaos.
Yeah, I think we'll all call Elon and go, Starlink, please.
Well, I don't know if we'd call him. I don't even know if he would take the call at this point. But we've seen so much, and I think that the country is very, very worried about that.
I think you look at what happened just on a smaller scale with North Carolina during the hurricane and flooding, and they were without power, and they were without the ability to communicate. And they were in a more rural area, so there was there were literally isolated clusters of people people didn't even know for days needed help because there was a lack of communication. When you don't have power, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble, and now if you don't have a cellular service, you're in a tremendous amount of trouble. So what is with the Delaware GOP? I know you have your finger on that pulse. What are they saying? Like, is it everyone, and I know some of the very active GOP members, they're not all thrilled with the president right now. Is that the sense that you're getting?
The people who were not thrilled with the president before are still not thrilled with the president. And there are a few of them. There are very few of them. The majority of Republicans are united around President Trump in Delaware, statewide. I mean, I talked to Black Republicans in the city of Wilmington and, young Republicans in Dagsboro, Delaware, and they are almost universally behind the president. They have confidence that he's going to restore our energy independence and bring the cost of oil down. And although the prices went up 10 cents as soon as the bombs dropped, I think, per gallon, I think they're coming back down. He's ordered everybody get them back down. And the price of oil per gallon dropped. So I think you're going to see gas prices go down again. They believe that he is going to protect the country. 98% of the job is 2% of what you do, and that is protect the American people.
So do you think that I don't want to call it behavior, but there have been some antics.
Yeah.
There's been some antics. And
He dropped an F-bomb today.
He did. It was a big one, and about two countries, and they don't know what they're doing, so he basically belittled two countries and prime ministers.
Director of National Intelligence under the bus. But, there's a lot of...
But aren't you tired of that? You have to be.
I say it takes a lot of energy to be a Trump supporter. It does. It takes a lot of energy because he is constantly demanding something, some response, some action, some thoughtfulness, some, mostly reaction. And it takes a lot of energy.
Would you, I have a very sinking feeling that if President Biden or President Obama, or President Clinton for that matter, if we're taking time, accepted a plane from Qatar, you would have been outraged.
I would wonder what the heck was going on, and I don't necessarily... There are a lot of things that President Trump does that people don't universally agree with. What he says on Truth Social, what he used to say on X or Twitter, what he says off the cuff. And it's hard to follow him because although he has a master plan,
does he?
Yeah, I think he does. I think it's this whole trade route. I really, really do. And I've read a couple of other people who think that because he's always so focused on the economics of everything. To him, it's a business deal.
Absolutely.
Everything is a business deal.
He's proven that time and time again.
And that almost makes it cleaner. Because
really, when you bring money into politics, into the political office, you think that makes it cleaner?
No, I don't. No, I don't think he sold the presidency. Tell me what you think means he sold the presidency.
I think when you're accepting private jets.
Well, the airplane from Qatar, I'm not sure, except for the fact that the U.S., I guess Boeing hadn't delivered and was late by years.
And I had a feeling this was a push to make sure that he got something.
I have a feeling that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And of course, he can't take anything personally. He can't accept personal gifts.
But you're having CEOs
because he's a president
from technology companies that are now made lieutenant colonels in the military as of yesterday. I think that's
who was that?
Unprecedented. The CEOs from Meta and a couple other, I don't want to quote exactly, but they were made lieutenant colonels in the National Guard from the top four.
Because they want their company's support in our intelligence gathering, I guess.
I am sure that they already had contracts.
I didn't follow that particular news.
Right, but I will definitely make sure that you get it. But I have a feeling it's going to make your head scratch. But also, we can't overlook Elon Musk and what he did in the White House. Which was
brilliant, by the way.
Doge was far from brilliant.
Doge was great. But one of the things that Doge did that I was very upset about, there are agencies now who are hiring back some of the people that were fired. And they said, well, we always knew we'd not get everything right and we'd have to bring some people back. And I'm like, that's inexcusable. Those were people's lives.
Yeah.
Okay? I came from needing a job and not being able to pay bills if I didn't have one.
Right.
A lot of people out there are one paycheck away from not being able to pay their bills. And to disrupt their lives like that is grossly unfair and unacceptable. And so to that extent, they were a little more reckless than I would have liked. But I do think that they have uncovered and brought scrutiny to a lot of issues that people have just felt, well, we're so big, we can't really deal with all those details. And I think they're showing us that you need to deal with details. And secondly, what I hope comes out of DOGE is that we have a system that does not pay somebody who's 6 years old Social Security without looking into it, and doesn't pay someone who's 112 years old Social Security without looking into it, and doesn't pay the same amount exactly each month for 15 months to a doctor for services that weren't rendered without looking into it. What I hope is that we get from these young, bright minds who are system-oriented is better technology for the government that will allow it to be more efficient.
Is there? But I really do think that there is a way with these brilliant minds that are system-oriented that they could have done that without forcing several Americans, both Republican and Democrats, regardless of party, to lose their job, especially for those that were in a job where their position was needed, where they were fully capable and accredited and able to do the job, and were basically released for very little reason. And on top of that, and I don't want to get too wrapped up in DOGE, the bang for the buck, as I always like to say, the flash to bang, the amount of money that was actually saved, it may sound astronomical to you and I, but to the big budget, it was less than 4%. I think that's fair.
There are two things about that. One, I hope that the savings continue on. Mm-hmm. I do think they could have, as I said, they could have been more careful. I'm a little disappointed when I heard, well, we knew we'd get something wrong. Yeah, but not 50,000, you know?
Right.
And the second thing is that I think the president needs to make a very clear message that some of those savings, some portion of every dollar we save goes toward the deficit. Because a lot of people voted for him.
But is that really going to happen, though? I mean,
I think it has to. A lot of people voted for him, especially young people, don't want that, hanging around their necks, and they want the chance to succeed economically, and he needs to make sure that money, portion of that money, every dollar he saves goes to the deficit.
Is that going to kill you in the midterms? Do you think these behavior, these antics, all of these things that are going on, do you really think?
No, because there are bigger issues. Men and girls sports, 80-20 issue. The education system, 80-20 issue. I think that those issues are going to carry the day more than this. And keeping America safe, 80-20 issue. You're going to see the people don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb overwhelmingly in this country. Whether he did it exactly right or not, he did more than anyone else has done.
He just threw. I think it's safe to say that he just threw the first punch.
That may be. When you look at what Obama did and sent pallets of money there, when you look at what Joe Biden did and he released funds, hundreds of millions of dollars, both of them it totals billions, to Iran that kept them afloat. At a time when exactly contrary to the effort that our sanctions were trying to impose, I think that this president will be more consistent in that, and Iran knows that, and hopefully that will bring them to the table. And if it doesn't, then they're going to suffer more. I think there'll be more sanctions.
Let's bring it home.
Okay.
The state of Delaware had an opportunity to go to a dinner last week with First State Educate. Mm-hmm. I think it's good. You know my stance on education. I think I know your stance on education. We both are, tired, disgusted by the state of our education system here in the state of Delaware. I am optimistic of our Secretary Cindy Martin that has been appointed by Governor Meyer, that she has the ability to change the educational system in the state of Delaware. I am optimistic. She
has the ability. The question is, will the governor let her do the things that need to be done? And I have to tell you that John Carney, I tried to talk to him. He wouldn't even look me in the eye when I was talking to him. They get $8 million into our budget for literacy specialists. Those specialists are supposed to teach teachers how to teach reading because there is a science to reading. All the parents I know the whole, cat, in phonics. But apparently they weren't teaching teachers how to teach reading by teaching phonics. And so they have to revamp it. I'll give them that. I don't think it really is that significant, but people concur and say there is a science to the teaching of reading, and I'll give them that. So $8 million for these teachers. But he didn't do the next step that Mississippi, Louisiana, and other states have done that has made a difference in the lives of those children. And that is, he didn't say you have to be able to read at third grade level to be promoted to fourth grade. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, and every kid in that school suddenly has an IEP, an individual education plan to read at third grade level, and every teacher and parent and student is engaged in making sure that kid doesn't fail, that they get to third grade level. That took Mississippi, the brownest and poorest of our states, from 49th or 50th for 30 years to 21st and number 1 in the country on improvement in student performance. And the reason is, if you can read, you can learn. And if you can't read, you can't begin to learn. Mm-hmm. And so we need to take the step to encourage, with our policy or statute, they did it with a statute in Mississippi, to get these kids reading at third grade level so they can begin to understand concepts, manage and manipulate and advocate with information as fourth graders and on in their education life.
So I want us to do better. Does the GOP feel as though we've made the correct decisions to fix education in the state of Delaware?
No.
I don't know.
Matt Myers says more money. More money is not the answer. If you look at the chart on how much money
that's one thing that he says. Let's be honest. That isn't the only
he wants
thing
to
that he
increase
says it's
pay,
going to fix all be all.
But he hasn't adopted the Mississippi practice, which is our system, education system, is bloated and inefficient. The product should be learning. They're not producing a product. We have 17 schools in Delaware with single-digit proficiencies in math or English. 11 are in this city. Mm-hmm. I've told the City Reparations Committee you need to adopt a resolution that you take back responsibility for educating your kids, and you implement that as a policy in your district, and you start taking care of these kids whose lives are being consigned to failure because they can't read, they can't learn.
The city of Wilmington has adopted or created the Office of Educational Advocacy.
I talked with her for about 45 minutes the other day.
Yeah, I think that
excited.
I'm excited
She should
too.
be a guest on your show.
I think so too.
Yes.
I think Dr. O.
Yes.
Yes, I think
O.
Dr. O. And I admire what the city of Wilmington is doing to be proactive.
Trippy Congo has taken the lead on this. I'm very excited for that. He's seen. I had that session. The program that I ran called with the Miss Virginia movie. I recommend everybody out there watch the movie Miss Virginia. It's about a single mom in the District of Columbia, drug-ridden, crime-infested neighborhood, who single-handedly convinced Congress to establish a school choice program when her son entered middle school and was forced to choose between getting kicked out of school for joining the gang or be beaten up. And he came out top of his class when he ended up in private school. 1,900 kids a year since 2004 or 5 have gone through that program in the District of Columbia. She convinced Congress to establish a school choice program that has made a difference in so many lives. And we need to do that in Delaware. You look at the Nativity Prep, right across from Bayard School, one of our worst performing schools, public schools in Delaware. They have kids who are going to Tower Hill and Archmere and Sally's for high school. They're 5th through 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And who are going to Penn State and Notre Dame and UPenn for college. These kids will have a very different future than the kids who live right in this house next door to them in the city of Wilmington. These are all boys, almost exclusively minority, and all from right near the city or just outside it, most of them.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give the Secretary of Education the benefit of the doubt. I started a job in January. It's currently June, right? So that's about 6 months. It is 6 months.
Yeah.
I don't expect to have all the answers right now.
No. Right? I don't think she has all the answers.
And I don't think she's ever claimed to.
No.
But I am expecting in the 25-26 school year, we need to see some dramatic improvements. And I
don't think you're going to.
I don't,
really don't.
I have to remain optimistic that the needle will begin to go the other way. And if not substantial, we will see efforts and a process.
So one of the
correction.
things that about the education program, the $8 million to teach teachers about teaching reading, I think the science of reading is not supposed to kick in until 2027 or 8. And so I'm like, why? We're squandering lives without teaching kids right now. Why would we have an implementation plan that's delayed by several years? And that's the reason. I mean, I'm very critical of the education and public school system because it isn't working. And it isn't because it's not working for me. It's not working for kids. And I know I've upset a lot of people in the state government because of that. But I mean, I was born in Eastlake.
Right.
You know, I went to George Gray Elementary, lived on East 28th Street. The kids who live there now, maybe they're a little different, but you know, they're who I can relate. They're me. To me, they're me. And we're not giving them a fair shake. We're not giving them a fair opportunity.
But I
Breaks
don't,
my heart.
I don't think that that's a partisan issue.
It isn't. Oh, no.
Okay.
But I'm being critical of state government because if the system is that bloated and more money doesn't matter, and you're looking at school districts who spend way less and are doing much better, what is it? What is it about our system?
I will agree, and I make no bones about my allegiance, to most part, as being a Democrat. But I don't think that this is as much of a money issue as our government is making it. Our state government is making it.
That's right. It's not a money issue.
I don't think that putting another $600 million towards this is going to be a corrective action.
We're in the top 10 in spending, and we're 47th out of 50 with our kids performing. Delaware is not the first state when it comes to education,
Right.
let me tell you.
And I am not saying that our teachers have not rolled up their sleeves.
No,
and
this
dug
is not
in.
about the teachers. They're as much stuck in this stupid system as the parents and kids are. This is not. It is about the system that is bloated and inefficient and structured in a way that doesn't let kids learn. And when they talk about equities in spending, so on average, the State Department of Education reports we spend a little over $20,000 per student per year. But at Warner, and I think at Bayard, it's close to 34 because we give more resources where they are needed already. Already we do that. You know, whether it's through other programs, maybe it doesn't reflect in the formula, but the truth is we are putting more resources. There are enough people at Warner, and we pay enough per student. If you pay $34,000 per student, you could almost have one-on-one tutoring for 9 months for that kid for that money.
And if that's what they need.
And get better results than what we do with people who are floundering in a system that, I mean, the teachers don't like it. They don't feel safe. They don't feel like they're appreciated. They don't feel like they have the resources they need. And yet we're spending all that money. Where is it going and why isn't it?
That's my question all the
It's
time.
hard to find out from the Department of Education website.
And this is from being a common statesman, I cannot deal with paying contractors and supplemental staff and everything that are not getting it done.
Secretary Martin could do great wonders for the education system if she would be more if she would open up the transparency. That's something that is lacking in the state education system. And
the database that's easy
That's
to
right.
access information, not only for professionals that are in the educational space, but for parents and
right.
common folk aside, that we can figure this out and know the numbers. I've spent some time over the past 3 months in the database that the Department of Education provides, and I cannot say that it's user-friendly.
No, it's not. And believe it or not, the General Assembly refused to hear a bill because they thought it might go towards school choice. The Democrats held up a bill that would have required the Department of Education to make it easy to find how your school ranks and what the performance proficiencies are for the students in your child's school. and they wouldn't pass that bill.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think intentionally they are trying to. It's almost as though
They
when I'm
said
in the
they
database.
thought the literal statement from the senator who held it up was, I think this is a step toward school choice. Because if parents aren't happy, they're going to want to take their kids somewhere else. And I don't think the quality of a kid's education should depend on the value of a house you can afford or where you can afford to live. And that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. We're selling people down the river who are poor and acting like they don't matter, they don't need it. And I know that's not in the hearts of the secretary, the governor, or any of the teachers.
I don't think it is
But the
either.
reality is that's the impact. Mm-hmm. And if you want to change it, you have to change the impact. I'm a firm believer that competition is the way that you get people's attention. Mm-hmm. You know, if you can do more and better in a different system, then you adopt that system.
What I have seen this year, what I haven't seen before, and I think it's because I haven't been looking. I think that's the big deal, is that I've seen frustrated teachers to the point of, this isn't the job for me.
That's right. Teachers are leaving in droves.
This isn't the job for me.
And it's because, in large part, ever since, no offense, but President Obama's letter to the teachers about adopting a different system of discipline has created a risk for teachers. Teachers are getting hurt in our schools. There are brawls in the hallways of what you might think is a good school, like Brandywine High School.
But there's always been brawls in the hallway.
No, there haven't always been brawls in the hallway.
I think that there are methods to, and it has been a common theme where, look, we need to bring discipline back. We need to change our method of discipline, get the disruptions out of the class. I agree with that. But at the same time, I don't think the only reason why these teachers are thinking about leaving is strictly because of the discipline. I think it's because
the
of
State Education Association did a study. Mm-hmm. That was the number one concern of teachers, their personal safety.
Their personal safety.
Yep. So that's the DSEA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the union. And that's what they're saying.
I think from their thing was they were trying to make changes and they were handcuffed on how to make those changes.
Teachers aren't given the luxury of being able to teach in the classroom. There's a woman here who taught down in Florida. She lives in Delaware now. And she taught biology. And she, when they adopted some kind of system, new teaching system, she went to her principal and said, will you just trust me? Let me teach my bio class the way I want to teach it. Let me do what I think my kids need. And he said, okay. She had the number one biology class in the state in terms of student performance and knowledge. So teachers can do remarkable things if they are allowed. And the system doesn't allow them. It just doesn't. And they don't feel supported. I mean, that was, I think, the second or third thing, was they don't feel supported by the administration.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot that we could do. People are leaving and taking jobs in charter schools and private schools because they're safer there. The environment is different. And I know the luxury is you can ask a kid to leave if they're really disruptive. Mm-hmm. But why is that kid disruptive? First of all, he can't learn, he can't read. We're graduating. Listen to this. We have proficiencies in the 30s and 40s, but we're graduating 87% of the kids. 50 is now, after COVID, 50 is failing, and you have to get a 50 at least to go forward. So they are promoting kids who can't speak English. We're promoting kids who can't read.
And the proficiency tests are showing that. I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time to talk about immigration in this country. I know that you probably have a very firm stance on it. But at the same time, what is that doing to our country? I remember the riots and the issues of 2020, and I'm sure that you can recall riots from before that, especially being one of the top law enforcement officers of the state. That's what you were. But I'm very, very worried about the state of our country. I do not feel comfortable, and I'm saying this truly, that our president has the best in mind for his constituents.
Really?
I do not. I do not see him as the statesman that he needs to be. Some of that was today with some of his comments. Yeah. And I am not foolish enough to think that presidents don't curse on personal phone calls and.
But usually not to the media.
But not to the media, and not at a time.
Biden did too, though.
Not at a time.
I think it's
when
disrespectful of the office they hold to do that.
absolutely, and at a time when I would consider us to be vulnerable and looking for leadership, the most. I wouldn't give him a passing grade on that, and I'm just worried. I'm just really worried about the country that my children are going to grow up in and the future of our country over the next 3 to 4 years. I'm worried about the future of our country over this summer. So, as always, it is just awesome to talk to you. It is awesome to have a calm, cool, bipartisan discussion and to know your stance on things. I think we both, just to recap, I think we both agree about the need for education reform in the state of Delaware. We definitely both agree that it doesn't need to be a financial one. Yep. There definitely needs to be some accountability here. I am anxious to see how you all do in the midterms and to see whether or not these effects actually play out. But thank you for joining us here on this Statesman.
And it's hard to believe that President Trump has only been president for 6 months. It seems like it's been much
It's
longer.
hard and it's scary.
I'm not so much scared. He's unpredictable, there's no question.
But that's what you're looking for in a president, isn't it? A little bit of
Well,
predictability.
then he shouldn't. Oh, you mean predictability?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that's predictable about him is that he, I believe, acts in what he believes is the best interest of the American people, and that he cares very much. You know, when you listen to his tone, and I know people think of him as a real hard butt, but the truth is that when you listen to his tone when he talks about, you know, I don't want those people dying, you know, in Israel and Gaza and Iran. He doesn't want that. He wants peace. He says, no, that because more lives will be lost. I mean, I think he truly is motivated by those factors and is genuinely interested in trying to promote peace in the world and stability. And he believes that comes, I mean, there's no question, he believes that comes from economic prosperity.
Yeah, but as they find U.S. ordnance in Israel that is discharged that we've given to the Israelis, I'm sorry, in Gaza.
President Biden gave
Gaza,
President Biden gave Israel material for that.
It's
They
going
were
to be
attacked. Israel was attacked by the Hamas, who you can have sympathy for the individuals who live in Gaza, but they voted in Hamas. They voted in the regime that created and carried out those attacks. Mm-hmm. I know there are people out there who say, "Oh, it's all made up and on video." But
I don't think it's made up. I don't think it's made up and on video.
But the truth is that, you know, we still have people who are being held hostage, and they just turned over more. We know there's more there. They just found more bodies through their own effort, not through cooperation.
On both
Hamas.
sides. On both sides. I mean,
Well,
I think
we didn't have captives.
We didn't have captives, but we did create a lot of this. Anyway, we could go on and forever. I look forward to having you on again.
I'd love to.
And bring Miss Murray on next time.
Well, you know, I offered the opportunity to talk about the Republican Party, but she had actually a meeting this evening that she couldn't get out of.
Well, we look forward to seeing her.
I'll encourage her to come over.
Yes, please do. And we encourage you to continue to watch. This is our first show, The Honorable Jane Brady. It's only going to get better from here. So stay tuned, stay watching. We'll see you on social media. We'll see you anywhere. Be sure to comment, like, everything right here.